Today, we are breaking down the top 43 wide receivers in the 2026 NFL Draft. Let's jump right into this. This is an all-inclusive list of all the receivers I watched. I want to give you guys everything. This is how I grade them. What you need to know from this is you'll be seeing the categories all over again, but the tier system as well, what the colors mean as well as how it relates to my overall grading system, starting out with my number 43 wide receiver in the 2026 NFL Draft class. That is going to be Deuce Robinson, former USC transfer to Florida State. He is 6'6", 222. In this series, we are going to be breaking down one single game from my scouting report per player. So that's why the video is going to be so long. Do not take dream fits too seriously. They're there more for fun than anything, but I hope you guys do enjoy it nonetheless. But let's get right into this, starting out with, of course, Deuce Robinson's game versus Notre Dame. And if I saw a player play Notre Dame, you bet your ass I probably included it on this list. But starting out, you can tell right off the bat that he's huge. He does not look, let's read it as it is. Definitely not a fast mover. He can build up speed overall, hence why you're seeing that burst as an F. So off the line, not necessarily great, but that top speed, he can end up building up some. He showed some contact balance after the catch. Not really much there. Of course, if you show some contact balance, you're probably not going to get an F in that category. You'll probably get in that D range if you don't show much else except for contact balance. He ended up dropping a catch in traffic. So, by the way, my comp for this guy is going to be basically a worse version of Johnny Wilson in every category. I think he'll actually be very good for Florida State. I just don't think he translates to the NFL. Hitches or curl routes have been solid, but that's about it. Literally plays like a shittier Johnny Wilson. There we go. Answer my own question. My guy has shown no ability to catch through contact. That's a big issue for me. And I'm surprised I didn't knock him down anymore, but I just felt like, getting a non-NFL grade. And I should have honestly given Deuce Robinson not the red tier. I was debating on giving him an even lower tier than that, but it is what it is. His lack of use in the red zone also confirms his lack of ability to play through contact. Cannot get downfield, pass downfield press, and overall very underwhelming. You guys know me. I was a super big Johnny Wilson fan. I'm like one of the biggest stands of big wide receivers. Like, I love little wide receivers. I love big wide receivers that can play properly for their size. And Deuce just did not do that. And of course, he's going to a spot that knows how to utilize him a little bit better, in my opinion, than USC. I'm hoping to see that this will end up ticking upwards in terms of the trend rather than kind of staying stagnant or even going the opposite way. This is grading a player based on how they are right now as well. So keep that in mind. There are certain players that I think will be taking noticeable jumps. Next, we got Chris Brazzle II. Another thing I will note in this, guys, is that if you didn't have very many reps, or you didn't end up having, or you were injured for the season, I decided not to include you. So guys like Nick Anderson were in that mix. So if you guys are wondering where those guys are, that's a big reason. If you're hurt pretty much all the year, I don't really think your tape's translatable. The only player I kind of did an exception for was Deion Burks, because I think he was really high on my list coming into the year. But Chris Brazzle, this was a really disappointing one. I believe he was a Tulane transfer as well. You see a 6'5", 200, supposed to be a deep threat, and it didn't come to fruition. Let's talk about his game versus Ohio State, because of course you see that versus top end, legitimate NFL corner talent. And off the bat, number 5 popped. And if I'm not mistaken, the guy who I ended up seeing consistently pop when I watched the Tennessee receivers, it was unfortunately Brew McCoy, and he medically retired, so that sucks. But I don't think he got a rep until quarter 2, so that was what sucked as well. Chris Brazzle, like even in this game, and I wanted to see him in like a game where he was utilized a little bit more. In this game, rep-wise, he did fine, but there were periods of time where they just did not use this guy on the field. He's not really vertically separating, which was a surprise for me. That was kind of the one role they had for him. He ended up bobbling an easy slant, didn't even run a good slant route either. So that kind of sucks, especially like 45-degree change of direction is going to be those slants, corners, basically, boom, that's 45 degrees. Every other cut, which is like a 90, a 180, and then you obviously talk about like the 270s, right? The comeback routes, like that's under hard cut change of direction. It's very easy to score well in a 45-degree change of direction category. I'll just put that out there. Not so much in the hard cut change of direction unless you're not running full speed, but that's another conversation on its own. Regardless, he ended up bobbling a pass on an easy slant route, didn't run a very good slant route either. Ended up having a shitty in route, which again, he ended up making up for it as time goes on. Obviously, that's why there's a B in the hard cut category, but he flashed a rocker step when he was going on a post. So if you guys want to, I would always point you guys towards, I think it's called First Down Academy on Instagram. Really good in terms of looking at quarterback and receiver mechanics. He does a lot of quarterback and receiver camps around like the country. So he ends up posting a lot of tips on there. So I've gotten a lot of my stuff from him, and I think he does a very good job there. But it's good to see at least there's a little bit of some sophistication. Like a rocker step's not easy to execute. I saw it a little bit with Chris, and Chris ended up being able to get some separation at least on the post route. Ended up dropping another catch in traffic. His hitch routes are okay. He bends his 45-degree cuts. So like I was talking about before, those slants, post, etc., you have to do it so quickly when you flip your hips because you're not generating that change of direction the way that you do if you're stopping on a dime or you're changing direction entirely if you're going to be doing a comeback route, to where the corner also has to do a drastic change of direction. That's why when it comes to 45-degree changes of direction, so slants, posts, etc., you end up seeing players like Jaden Higgins who flip their hips and maintain momentum seamlessly. That's how they generate separation on those. Like, that's how you have to generate separation. You have to change on a dime and you have to maintain momentum because those corners are very good at being able to handle that because they don't have to change their own direction as much. So when you see guys bending those slants, those posts, all they're doing is essentially giving the cornerback an easier job. And that's why it's super important, especially for a deep threat. I'm surprised how poorly he did it. But not seeing much vertical separation the way I thought I would. My God, this guy is bad. Even if he can do a nice comeback route, this guy cannot catch. And that was one of the biggest things in the world for Chris, is that his catching was atrocious. Even when you didn't have to be on your A game, he wasn't on his A game, right? So that was just really unfortunate there. Really hoping that he has a better season this year without Dante Thornton there. Like, maybe he can end up carving into a little bit of that role because he was definitely a little bit lower on it. I did not include Squirrel White on this, but easily could have. Squirrel White would probably be in this range as well. Then we got Kaden Lee. Talk about a disappointment, man. He put up some good numbers last year for Ole Miss, but it honestly just gives more and more credence to the idea that the Ole Miss offense is not translatable to the NFL. And I was excited for him. I thought he'd end up being like a top 30 receiver for me. Did not end up breaking the NFL quality barrier for me, which is about 60. 60 is like that grade of a spot where I'm like, okay, now you can end up being that UDFA territory where like I think you actually could potentially stick to a practice squad roster. But he ended up having a little bit of punch, but he did not have super crisp routes. So that's that burst and then, the route running ability. So funnily enough, my initial first rep reaction was the exact opposite of his overall game profile. Then I said, okay. I love when I end up like spoiling my own stuff. I said, not gonna lie, I already take it back. The punch is surprisingly underwhelming. And remember, this guy is 5'11", 175. He is just not a good athlete at his size, which is kind of nuts. Chose the wrong way when he was running after the catch. So the vision, not good, which again, when you're that size, you need to be smart with the ball in your hands. He was fluid. Oh, this is a game versus Duke, by the way. I'm tripping. I should have told you guys that before. He's fluid, but so far extremely unimpressive. He can end up building up some speed in a vertical roll. He got put on his back when he was blocking. I think he's one of the few that got like a 1 or a 0 out of 10 in blocking, which is funny as hell. But I will also say this right now. My grading system is different than it was last year because I graded every receiver on an equal standard, right? Like it's just hard cut change of direction is worth 10 points. 45s are worth 10 points. Run after the catch is worth 15. But this year I did something a little bit different. And, I'm giving you guys little hints here and there. And, we're going to be dropping some premium content for you guys to where you can end up seeing this yourself. But I ended up breaking it into roles because I don't think a player who's going to be asked to be more of an X receiver should be graded on something that is more for someone who's going to be more of a gadget player. So definitely want to put that out there. Kaden Lee, his grade is in the best category for him. So again, I want you guys to keep that in mind. Regardless, He's fluid so far, but extremely unimpressive. He can build up speed in a straight line. Got put on his back while blocking. Here we go. Really scary with how unexplosive he is at his size. Up there with the most unimpressive wide receivers I have ever studied. The worst blocker I have ever seen at wide receiver as well. Not NFL quality. So just very unfortunate. The thing is, he has like no drops. Like at all. So it really carried his grade a little bit in general. So I had to end up giving him that ain't factor for that primary reason. Josh Cameron was a recommendation as well. And I love Baylor players. I love a lot of players on Baylor. Josh Cameron didn't necessarily get me going, but he had a little bit of flash here, a little flash there. So let's talk about his overall performance. And again, 6'1", 220, that's built to be, you think about AJ Browns of the world, like that is not a bad frame at all. So I was really hoping that he'd end up having better statistics in terms of his contested catch. I'm pretty sure it's awful. Like I know the grade is an F, but talking about percentage wise, I think it's in the 30s. That's just not acceptable. And especially at Baylor where you have a quarterback that is not pressured at all in Sawyer Robertson. Like that offensive line did a great job. So the ball placement was optimal. You need to be able to bring down those contested catches. But let's talk about his game versus Iowa State. And really good corners for Iowa State. Quarterbacks, for some reason, performed well versus Iowa State on a randomly high basis. But when you actually look at the matchups between receivers and corners, between Darian Porter as well as, why am I forgetting the guy's name? My number 5 overall corner this year is also from Iowa State, forgetting its name off the top of my head. But regardless, really good corners. And then you look at, I believe it's like Malik Vernon, the safety from Iowa State. Like, you're seeing him go up against like NFL talent. So it was good to see that. Regardless, he starts out the game, have some really nice hard cut change of direction. Like when it comes to those hitch routes, it's beautiful. He can stop on a dime. I love seeing players who can do that. Needs to deal with press better overall. And again, usually if you have a good press capability, you know how to get yourself in the position to be at the optimal catch point, which usually makes you better at contested catches. So usually if you see somebody that doesn't do well versus press, they probably aren't going to do well versus contested catch, and probably vice versa as well. We can end up seeing that as the list goes on. But his top speed seems to be capped, but he has some nice burst to him. He leaned in before cutting on a 45-degree cut. That's something that bothers me. And actually, Shi Smith was the first one I ended up really seeing it with. You have to be sudden. Corners can end up picking up when you're about to do something if you're starting to lean into it, right? Like if I'm going to be running a route, and every time I end up going like this, the direction where I'm supposed to go, the corner has already an indication, A, you're about to cut. So they're preparing. And secondly, if you're leaning into it, unless you just are an absolute beast and just know how to like get the attention of the corner and make them bite on something you're not doing, which some of the best do, but this is not that case. You're giving them both time to react and kind of a vision, a crystal ball into the future. And I really don't like when I see that, especially when it comes to slants where you need that quick separation. He had some good blocking reps in there. Gorgeous hard cuts overall. Has been useless versus press, unfortunately. Some upside for sure, but there are some issues that will be holding him back at the NFL level. I'm hoping that it does end up coming to be a little bit more worked through with the next year he's at Baylor. Again, Baylor has a great offensive line. They have a really good run game as well. Like Josh Cameron should be able to produce a lot more this year, and I'm excited to see him do it. Then let's talk about Jacoby Lane. This is going to ruffle some feathers. You guys know I love using that phrase too, but there's a Jacoby Lane fan base. Every single person I've talked to that's watched Jacoby Lane that like I personally put a lot of stock into as a creator, they're saying he's like the most mid-day 3 type of prospect they're watching, right? So I hate to say it. I want to like Jacoby Lane a lot more. And with the exodus of receiver talent from USC, I definitely think it's possible to see Jacoby Lane take a step up. But let's just talk about his game versus Washington. Rather than me just harping on him, but like let's talk about it because he has some good foundational traits. I mean, good release package. And I talked about this on X as well. You can feel free to go follow me over there. I post all 22 clips from these games that I'm actually talking to you about, so you see some context there. But, he has some of the finer details down with the footwork on release and then also being able to block as well. I love having those two traits. Reminds me a lot of George Pickens, but on obviously for Jacoby Lane, a much lower level. But again, let's talk about his game versus Washington. Again, you're talking about bigger corners, but also Thaddeus Dixon, who's a top 15 corner for me this year. Nice adjustment to a ball that was thrown behind him. Not overly athletic, but a solid release package downfield. Downfield means maybe not off the line. I still think he has a good release package off the line, but there's certain reps where, if a defender's pressing you on the second level, it's called a second level release, and you basically do a little swim move to get past him, or you just basically know how to get past defenders that are in your way. I'll kind of bundle that into the release package. So continuing on, then he ended up having a nice release off the line versus Prysock, showing some long stride, deep threat ability versus slower corners. Ended up getting bitched by Thaddeus Dixon. So shout out to Thaddeus there, UNC with Chapel Bill. But regardless, I mean, at least he's showing out versus the corner he needed to show out against. And then, of course, the better corner, who I think is a better corner than Jacoby as receiver, is winning. Makes sense. Flash of playmaking IQ. This is actually a really interesting one that can end up working into it factor, because you just can't look at it equally, because not many receivers are put in the situation to truly evolve their routes based on the offense they're in. But basically, if you run a little bit of a curl route, right? Let's just say you run a 5-yard hitch and the defender's on your ass, and then you see your quarterback scrambling. You see that, like, playmaking IQ is understanding, how do I get open for my quarterback and how do I maximize the play even when the play that was designed for me doesn't actually work. And there's certain players that just do it so well. Last year, Almainer, like, he's now on the Titans, so shout out to the Titans. But Elick was so fantastic at being able to, like, just continue trying to get open up windows for his quarterback. So that's something I really do like about Jacoby Lane for sure. But continuing on, he tries to block, but he's not overly effective. So he ended up being a lot more effective as the game went on, which is good. So you see that initiative, because not many receivers really like to block, but Jacoby did. He's not put out there on a Hail Mary attempt. That's a big question for me, because he did have pretty solid contested catch statistics. I believe it's in that 50% range. Like, I just don't understand why you wouldn't put him out there on a Hail Mary. Maybe he got like a little bit like winded or something. I don't know. He has some short range burst at certain points. So that's why you see C is an adequate grade. Like, I'm a little bit of a tough cookie when it comes to grading. I already know I'm going to get kind of shamed for that, but that's okay. Most of the time during summer scouting, people who watch me are people who actually follow the show. So I'm doing this. Obviously, I would not be doing a top 40 something receiver video if I'm just trying to get some clicks. Like, just going to be honest, it would be a lot easier just to do a top 10. But in the future, I might be doing like top 10 or 15 on the show and do a top like 40 plus on like a Patreon or something. Feel free to let me know what you think about that idea. But back to Jacoby Lane. Has some short range burst. He can get flustered if defenders get their hands on him, which is just crazy to me, because he has the ability to get past them and deal with them. And it's just almost a mental aspect, which is why I really like having the versus press category. And honestly, I think it's one of my favorite. And I mean, it might end up being my favorite category in terms of projecting how comfortable I am with you. Like, when guys get their hands on you, because the NFL, Jalen Ramsey's going to get his hands on you, right? Like, you look at Christian Gonzalez going to get his hands on you. Like, there's going to be, these corners are physical. If you lock up and you can't get away from it, you're screwed. You're useless. And you need to not be that if you're an NFL receiver, which is, like, again, it's something that is hard to exactly get one-to-one, but it's good because I think it's one of the most underrated categories that I've seen. I don't see enough people talking about how receivers mentally process how to handle press, because Jacoby's a perfect example. He has all the tools to handle press, and the mental part hasn't clicked yet. And then you're getting to a whole new level once you get to the NFL. But again, finally, let's finish off Jacoby Lane here. Pause. He's just overall a bad route runner. He had a bad drop over the middle, got bitched by press coverage. I do not see an NFL wide receiver with these traits. It's very bad issues to have. So that's why I end up having my big concerns with it. Devonte Ross is next, former Troy receiver. And we ended up seeing him actually ball out versus Iowa. He's an amazing vertical threat, but there's just some issues that I definitely think we need to talk about when it comes to his game. So the biggest thing is, and this is another way to have a low versus press score, do you know how to avoid it? Because Devonte Ross did not, because he kept running into the press corner. I know that you're designed to run a route because you're supposed to have certain timing and everything else in a specific play. Like, your practice a play, and your quarterback is kind of expecting you to be at a certain spot, which requires you to run the route with the time that's supposed to happen. But certain receivers understand how to manipulate said route when the corner is standing directly in front of him. You do not, especially when you're 170 pounds, which he was, I believe, lighter than that over at Troy. This is how he's listed at Penn State. By the way, baller image, by the way. I mean, I love it. But, I mean, if you run into press, you are also making their job a hell of a lot easier because they're like, okay, I don't even have to go towards you. Like, you're just going into me. But regardless, he ended up showing, like, when it wasn't press coverage, he had some really, really nice stuff. Ended up having a drop in traffic. He has good hard cuts overall, which, I mean, his double moves were fantastic. Ended up having, man, I spoiled it again. Great double move for a deep touchdown. Ended up posting that on X. Ended up having another double move that yielded another touchdown. So that's how he ended up putting up so many yards. It was actually a little bit more concentrated on a couple plays. Will be an intriguing deep threat option, but he pretty much is just that. And I mean, drop rate, if you're in the F category, you have over 10% drop rate. That's a big thing for me, especially if you're over 10%, like 11, 12 and beyond. Your score is going to be pretty low. And of course, at 5'10", 170, he was never used as a blocker. Didn't look good when he was blocking. I mean, obviously you're going up against Iowa. I know those are some of the better run defending corners, but you gotta put up a fair fight. And I did not see him do that. Let's talk about London Humphreys next. He was somebody who ended up sneaking onto a way too early mock draft because I like his ability after the catch in terms of just that straight line speed. And it ended up popping up. We'll talk about him versus Tennessee. Like, it pops up as like someone who could just fly. But I mean, unfortunately, it wasn't because he's some mastermind with the vision and making guys miss. And I also, this time, tried to blend a lot more of the missed tackle statistics into it. I used to be like, okay, I'm only going to go based off of what my eyes see. And I think that's important. But when you don't watch every single game, it's also key. Some guys are just off for a game or two, but it's just good to understand, like, hey, this guy is making guys miss. So you can bump it up a little bit. I do heavily rely on my eyeballs far more than statistics because I know that when everybody goes to the NFL, their stats are 0. And so the only thing that translates is their ability, not their stats. That's why I do what I do. But regardless, let's talk about London Humphreys versus Tennessee. Solid acceleration off the bat. And by solid, I mean fucking incredible. I mean, if you get an A grade, that's just ridiculous. B+ is fantastic. Just like FYI, my grading scale is very tough. Like, it is very tough. You have to do a lot to get into the B range. So I just want to put that out there. It is tough to get a good grade as a wide receiver, but it is what it is. Able to vertically challenge the defense. That's one of the first things I got to see. Can you make the defense feel your presence deep? Like, do you have the ability, even when you're not the primary target, to draw attention from one or more players? Because if you're just kind of a sub process for a corner, like, okay, this guy's not beating me deep. I'm just going to focus on what's going on in the play as I'm just kind of guarding him. You're kind of useless, right? But if you're like threatening, and I mean threatening the corner, in this case, we'll talk about, there's a couple of solid corners there for Tennessee, but obviously Jermod McCoy, who took a big step up. Like, by watching guys like London Humphreys, I ended up boosting his grade. But regardless, I mean, if you're challenging him who has vertical or speed challenges, then you're going to start drawing the attention of the safety. And regardless of that, even if you can't really do much, which you look at this release package F versus press F, and of course you're going up against a great press corner, but still, in this situation, even though you can't necessarily truly beat him with technique, one thing remains, and that's speed. And now you really have to keep the attention of the defensive coordinator with a safety over the top if London Humphrey starts running deep. So something just to note right there. I mean, small little nuggets that I've been able to, change in terms of valuing for like certain roles, like a deep threat. But let's get back to it. Sucks that he cannot do a contested catch. He ended up losing track of the ball. And that's the thing. Like, his contested catch rating is pretty damn awful. And when I ended up seeing him not track a football, one of my favorite things about Luther Burden last year, even though he wasn't the biggest guy on earth, is that he could track a ball perfectly. And it's kind of a big deal. Like, you need to know where the football is going to be, especially if there's a corner on your ass. So that was a little bit of a concern for me right there. Obviously, why I do not believe in him too much as much more than kind of like the vertical speed guy. But continuing, needs a quicker release off the line. Ends up doing a lot of the stutter steps, which, I mean, at least you try, but that really fucks up timing in the NFL. Some flashes as a blocker. Honestly, has been pretty smooth as a route runner. Not enough route fakes to generate separation and has dealt with issues versus press. And that's something I also want to point out to you guys. If you see some good route running grades, but you don't see a good separation grade, you're like, how the hell can you run a good route but not get separation? There's some cornerback aspect to that. But on top of that, if you're not, I mean, corners are good. Their job is to cover your routes, right? But on top of that, a whole new layer is, are you making them second guess their initial instinct? Or are they able to just go on gut instinct because they know you're not going to fake them out? Like I was talking about a rocker set for Chris Brazzle earlier. He's basically making someone think he's doing another action than what he's about to do. So it either freezes up the corner or the corner bites and does something horrible, and then you get open. That's just kind of not what London did. He's a solid route runner that didn't use enough fakes to get him open. And when you're a good route runner with good speed, you should be developing that. Like, that's a big thing. But, I mean, Georgia has been trying to focus on so many receivers, and it's not going to get better for London Humphreys because you're getting Zachariah Branch in there. You're getting Noah Thomas. I am a little bit concerned about Humphreys. I was really hoping to see him take a big step up this year, and I still think he can. But continuing on, he's been pretty smooth. The route runner, okay, there we go. Overall has talent, but he needs to learn how to deal with defenders versus running on air. So basically, the whole entire point of that is London needs to understand how to play the game of football versus defenders. He knows how to do it in a vacuum when he's not playing defenders. He's good at routes. He's a fast player. Like, just needs to understand how to deal with other defenders. And I think that's why he has drop issues. I think it's why he can't, I think there's a mental aspect of the game of when London plays against defenders that he just hasn't processed yet. And he hasn't had a ton of reps, but that's just not an excuse when you're going to try to go to the NFL, right? It's like saying, oh man, I haven't been able to play that much at all. Then why are you coming out, right? Like, this is a job interview. If you're saying like, oh man, I'm not ready for the job, but I'm going to come out for the interview. That's what I'm saying. Barry and Brown moved up from like the 40s range up to 36. Like when I ended up doing last preseason, Barry and Brown's a fun player. I will admit, he literally popped and you're going to hear it when I talk about Dane Key later. He does have a little bit of an it factor to him, but whenever I see deep threats that just have garbage catching statistics, I just don't understand, because especially when you're used as a gadget, when you're used as a deep threat, a lot of times it's not contested, and that's why it doesn't necessarily affect drop rate. Like, drop rate it's not contested, and you just failed your job. So for Berrien, I was very surprised at that rate. Of course, there's a quarterback function in there, but usually the quarterback messes up. PFF's not going to grade you as a drop. But let's talk about this is going to be a really short one. It's versus Texas, but you guys are going to see me have a crash out mid-scouting report because I ended up falling in love with this player, and then you'll hear what happens. So he's a willing blocker who flies off the line. So obviously really good speed and burst statistic right there. That B+ again is fantastic. Like, that's a top end result. He ended up slipping a tackle on a jet sweep. So far, the best rack ability out of any of the players we talked about. Ended up saying 17 just popped in all caps. Here we go. And I said, who the fuck is 17? He already got, and then I did some research. He transferred to Nebraska. This motherfucker got dismissed already and apparently assaulted somebody on top of that in December. And I'm like, oh, why can't y'all just be good people, man? Like, this number 17, I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head. I ended up doing some research on him. He was the most eye-catching. I probably would have put him top 10. Like, he was young. I think he was a true sophomore too, or he's a true sophomore now. He might be a redshirt sophomore. Who cares? It's just, when you see that guy pop off and then you get excited and then you see, okay, well, he transferred Dane Key. Okay, that's good. And then you start seeing the news. It's like, this guy assaulted somebody. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, I know you play a physical sport, right? This is literally legalized assault, technically legalized battery as well, but I digress. It's just like, dude. And then apparently he got dismissed and Matt Rule was like, it's nothing to do with football, or I think it said nothing to do with certain relations. Like, something just wasn't right. And I'm just like, dude, what the hell happened behind closed doors? And that just sucks. As a Steelers fan, I've seen that a billion times where just guys are not right in the head. They're doing stupid shit. So that sucks. That really does suck because I was really excited for him. But let's get back to Barry and Brown. He flashed some good run after the catch vision, having a hard time with 90 and 180 degree cuts. 45s aren't good either. Definitely just a deep threat at the moment. Nice release at the second level overall. But ultimately, this guy just feels like someone who could press down the field and catch the ball short and try to take it to the house. And there's a role for that in the NFL. The problem with that is a very limited role. And I mean a very limited role. And I'm excited to see how Berrien does with Garrett Nussmeier, because Garrett Nussmeier likes to throw both super short, get guys to go after the catch, and throw deep to the deep threats. I don't know how this is going to work out with Aaron Anderson, but we'll talk about Aaron in a little bit. Marquise Johnson is next. And there was only one game where he had over 25 reps. It was their most recent game versus Iowa. And so we're going to talk about that. And this is a one-game scouting report. So this is exactly like you guys know every information that I do. Not overly explosive in short space. So this guy caught my eye, by the way, while watching TJ Hall. So that's why I wanted to watch him versus TJ Hall again and see how he performed versus guys like Jermari Smith, etc. Not overly explosive in short space. Ended up having a nice hitch route, a bit stiff after the catch. And it's actually quite surprising because he's just like really stiff. Like you can see that there's certain guys who move like water, like they're super fluid movers. It's just weird to see someone who's a kind of a burner, but then also it's a bit stiff. It's weird. It is weird. But he can slip tackles, but his change of direction in open space is rough when he has the ball. He has some nice 90-degree cuts. Again, 90-degree cuts, ins and outs. Called for a ball when he was covered. And for some things, it's like, oh man, what a savage. He's calling for the ball and he's covered. Some guys just don't understand if they're covered or not. And this was a clear indication. First off, he didn't see the safety coming over to help him. So he called out. But on top of that, the corner was on him. So he didn't understand that. And if your quarterback listens to you, you have to develop good trust. That's why I have this -1 hit factor. You have to gain the trust of the quarterback for when you end up recommending something like throw me the ball, even though I kind of look covered. You got to make him believe that you're doing it at the right time. And it wasn't the case. It wasn't the case. That's something that kind of bothers me. If you don't understand what's going on around you, you're going to lose faith in your quarterback really quickly. And then, if you lose the faith of your quarterback in the NFL, you're not getting the ball. You're not getting the ball, you're not on a roster. So it's an interesting slippery slope there. But he can get absorbed by press coverage. His top speed ended up being matched by Hall in some reps, and Hall is not a very fast corner at all. It was surprising because Marquise ended up popping off for having some deep speed. But when you end up actually watching him on a down-by-down basis, I don't think it's actually remotely close to what I saw from the corner of my eye. But regardless, he ended up having a nice flash of an outside release. That was his only release, though. That was kind of the big issue. But there was a nice second level release where he ended up doing it. He basically faked to the outside and then ended up going a swim move over to the vertical threat. I ended up posting that rep as well. You guys can go check it out. So it's like off the line, I have some issues with his release package. At least he flashed that, but I did not see that at all in any other case. So I was excited when I saw that because that's a sophisticated move, but not much more beyond it. Ended up having a drop when he was in open space. Ended up then making a beautiful moss catch. Like, just he mossed the defender deep. And I think I ended up posting that as well. Ended up then having a beautiful back shoulder pass. Again, another clip I ended up posting. I'm only dropping it just so if you guys do look at the page, you guys can see the exact rep that I'm talking about and know that I'm not talking on my ass. Doesn't have a sophisticated release package. There we go. Mostly speed releases outside. Man, I really do spoil this stuff for you guys, don't I? 45s have not been super crisp at all. He ended up having a catch in traffic after that. Had a false start. Not a big deal for me. If you have one, it's like, whoop-de-fucking-do. If it starts becoming a repetitive issue, that's where, we could talk about it. Dropped an easy hitch. How does he make how does he catch crazy passes but drops the easy? And then has been pretty useless overall as a blocker. His catch statistics aren't necessarily bad, but just the drops in general were a bit concerning. But let's speed this up a little bit. Jordan Faison's next. This is a guy who I really wanted to be higher on my list, but the drop rate's crazy. Contested catch is horrible. Like, you're just not going to grade out well if you can't catch the ball. And that's kind of the biggest thing as a wide receiver. You need to catch the ball. Let's talk about his game versus Ohio State. He's punchy. He has punchy hands when he's blocking. So first off, Notre Dame, they have some good blockers, man. They're doing a great job developing a culture there. Has good short range burst. Hitches have been crisp, but he has stumbled a couple times when he did his ins and outs. Active hands versus press, but I will say press can get to him. So again, talking about that mental aspect. Drifts away from defenders towards open areas, so there's some good playmaking IQ there, hence that +1. Given a handoff on a jet sweep, but his vision overall seems kind of iffy. Does a weird double cut when he ends up doing some 90-degree cuts. Um, Basically, he has to do like, rather than going like that, it's like he does two different breaks, like a 45 and a 45 rather than just a 90, which some guys can do really well. And so I won't bust their balls on it, but I didn't think Jordan Faison did it as well as I was really hoping for. Regardless, he flashed some deep speed versus Lathan Ransom, so it's good there. Again, B is a very solid grade. A little bit of drift when he runs his 45-degree cuts. There you go. Ended up having a throwing touchdown. Definitely a lot to work on, but has the foundation to grow into a bigger contributor. Well, guess what, motherfucker? They have two really good receivers coming in. One of them, Will Pauling, who also has the same hands issue, but is just a better version, which sucks because, you also then have like a massive threat in Malachi Fields that we'll talk about. I will just say those three are going to be in the top 15. Just going to put that out there. That's going to, or at least, in the top 20. It's kind of crazy. Just kind of crazy. But it's going to be an uphill battle for Faison there at Notre Dame. Deon Stribling, man. I ended up doing a late boost to his speed category because he's been clocked at 22 miles per hour. I do not think he plays with that speed. But let's talk about ASU because that was one of the games that I have in all 22. Again, I'm not somebody who has basically tape on every single player on planet Earth. There's a wide receiver from North Dakota State that I really wanted to watch. Don't have all 22 from North Dakota State. I only watch an all 22. I could be that guy who cheaps out and goes on YouTube, to watch that. I hate to say it. I'm not going to be that guy. I hold myself to a really high standard, and I'd rather not watch a player than, take the shortcut and then tell you guys I did. So I apologize about that factor, but at the same time, I hope you guys appreciate the fact that I at least try my best to hold up a higher level quality. But regardless, I wanted to watch his game versus Arizona State. Also wanted to check out some Arizona State players. So it was a nice little way to see if anybody popped off while watching Deon Stribling. He ends up having a weird movement style overall. And it gave me the initial expectation that he has zero athletic potential. So my instant gut reaction is this guy's not a good athlete. He's been tested apparently over 22 miles per hour. It really doesn't make sense. He flashed a nice upper release at least. So, again, doing that swim move, like something above the body that kind of gets you past the corners. He has good late hands. That's something I really like to see. Like good catching statistic in terms of, just overall drop rate. But on top of that, being able to, have those late hands to where if you're holding him out here the whole time, imagine what a corner's going to do. He knows where the ball is going to be. He knows the ball is coming versus if you're basically like 3, 2, 1. Now the corner has to then reach out. Like he has to have such a tight window to react that you really shrink the pool of corners that can actually make the play. So regardless, I liked how he has late hands. I can see how he's a really good red zone contested catch guy. However, his contested catch stats are a little bit iffy. But he has weird movement skills, and I said he looks like the way I felt with Thomas Faison, but at wide receiver. Faison has a weird movement style that I didn't really love. Same thing with Stribling. He can very slowly build up speed in a straight line, which apparently gets up to 22 miles per hour. Ended up having a nice catch in traffic, ended up dropping a pretty hard catch in traffic. Then he ended up being hurt or pulled. So regardless, Deon Stribling, I really hope that, he has finer details down. Again, I tell you guys, like, you flash top speed. I don't understand why your movement style is weird, but, if you did it, you did it, right? He knows how to handle press. He has a really good release package. He has good hands. So that's a good place to be. That's a really good spot to be. So at 33, I'm literally saying that you should be a relatively strong contributor at the bottom of the receiver chart of your roster. So whether you want to go to the UFL and end up being a true wide receiver 1 there, which I pray to God the NFL gets their head and ass wired together and brings on the UFL as a minor league, you have no idea how much I love the idea. If they were like a midweek game, right? Like Tuesdays, Wednesdays, that's where like some of the games are. Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. Maybe not Friday because I think it's illegal to do that. Who cares? You guys know what I'm talking about regardless. Like having them be during the week where, you can end up seeing the rookies are practicing with the NFL teams, like UFL and NFL are kind of combined that way, or, they have it separated. Regardless, seeing these rookies who need development but have this crazy potential like Deon Stribling, being able to have in-game reps and then growing and developing into the stars that they should be. But I was honestly surprised with his movement skills and his lack of acceleration at 200 pounds. I will say, especially for him getting up to that 22 miles per hour range, I was a little bit concerned. But still, I mean, at 33, like my number 34 receiver was someone who I really, really liked, and Jordan Faison. So again, we're talking about players who I legitimately like, which funnily enough, now that I'm saying it, that really did. I mean, Marquise Johnson had those flashes, but I mean, my grading system is reflective, and it makes me feel a little bit validated that it's reflective of where I start feeling comfortable with receivers. And I really do like seeing that. Regardless, let's talk about Dylan Bell. This is going to be pretty short and sweet versus Notre Dame. This is someone who I've liked. I mean, again, just not wowed. You see all the C's, and C is NFL adequate. So if you have C's across the chart, you're going to do well. If you have B's like Dylan Bell has, you're going to do really well. The problem is he has a big drop issue. But let's talk about his game versus Notre Dame. Starts out with some solid releases. And the reason why I talk about Notre Dame is if you're in the slot, you're going up against Jordan Clark. Really like that guy. If you're on the boundary, you're talking about guys like Leonard Moore. Or if it's earlier in the season, of course, you can end up talking about, why am I forgetting? Ben Morrison, who I love to death. But it's good to see how you perform versus the best of the best. I know you're going to lose. How do you lose? Do you lose well or do you lose poorly? If you lose poorly, I mean, again, you really like it. Leonard Moore might be a top 5 to 10 corner in the NFL, but the starting corners are not necessarily much worse than that. So it's good to see how you end up handling it. Regardless, has some solid releases, not vertically separating, but he actually can build up some speed. And again, really good corners. Nice back shoulder and run after the catch versus Moore. Good use of separation and short range with physicality. And that's another thing, guys. You could end up having pretty poor route running, and you might see a higher grade for separation. You'd be like, how the hell is that possible? Some players, and I gave this actually to Tyler Warren of all things, when you use your physicality to like push at the top of the route, where it's like, leaning into the corner and then you make that cut to where the corner, like, they're like this, and then you cut and they have to like reset their balance and then go back. That matters. And that is something that really can be the difference between, a good route runner who doesn't do anything like London and Humphreys for that matter versus Dylan Bell. They're on the same team, but I think Dylan Bell can use that physicality in a way that London so far hasn't, or at least London hasn't used like the route fakes to generate that same type of reaction distribution or reaction disruption, I should say. Regardless, good use of separation with physicality. A lot of the quick game goes his way, which is good to see. He's good after the catch. Nice double move, but it did not appear to have the top speed to break away, leading to a lost contested catch. So, and I said, oh no, he dropped a huge pass, there was a huge pass where he ended up breaking away and ended up dropping a catch in traffic. And I said, mixed emotions, but has a high ceiling. And again, the biggest thing for a wide receiver is, can you catch the ball? That's just number one. And so if you don't catch well, there's some real issues there. Like if you continue dropping passes, like how patient are going to be NFL rosters when, like, in college and even on their rosters, you're going to have 6, 7 other players that can catch the ball better than you. I mean, there's a certain point where talent it doesn't matter. If you don't have the ball in your hands and you're making a mess of the play, you can't show the talent that you have. This is a player who I think is going to take a huge step up this year. But to be fair, I also am a little bit worried about his role at Texas A&M. I just think that the catching stats are easily going to take a bump because I think Marcel Reed is a noticeable jump. It's just, I don't really know if the other categories are. So just FYI, I think Kevin Concepcion, if he boosts his hands, great. If he has like 4% less drops, which is a big ask, but 4% less drops and a boost of 10% contested catch, he is already in the top 15. So just understand that. You will see the grades. They're very close together. And again, when you grade so many players, they do kind of like get really close together where a small difference can make, a big point or big difference on the overall grade for where they're at in the rankings. But let's talk about Kevin Concepcion versus Clemson because I love Clemson and their defenders. underwhelming so far as an athlete, which ended up changing a little bit. I thought my big issue with Kevin, and I don't really blame him for this because the offense was absolute dog shit. He does have that, Luther Burden. I'm not going to try every rep play, like rep energy. So I'll just say that has some motor concerns. And then ended up having a fumble, a lot of lower effort plays. Again, spoiled it for myself. Nice release and then he ended up dropping in traffic on a slant. So again, a little bit of an issue. The hands scare me. They're very insecure. And then the stats ended up backing that up too. I like to look at the stats after I watch the player just to see how comfortable am I? Do I think it's going to continue? Because according to PFF, I know like Trev was talking about this, and he was talking about how drop rate is not necessarily a super translatable trait, which is why I like to understand how good are your hands before I end up like saying, okay, well, you had an 8% drop rate. This is going to be your grade. But I mean, hell, if you have an 8% drop rate, but I'm really confident in your hands, I'll grade you the same way that it's like a 7% who feels like a 7%. That makes sense? Hopefully it does. But let's get back to this. Basically really scared over his hands. And I said, finally, a higher intensity block rep. So it's good to see that he can do it, and he actually did a good job. Flash of an upper release on a manipulated route for a slant. So again, probably did an outside fake, a little bit of a swim move to then get really good positioning and then get open on a slant. That is a high level move. But haven't seen much run after the catch, even though he is used as their screen and reverse guy. The vision is overall solid. Really nice slant fade double move. So ended up faking the slant, going for a fade, ended up selling that very well, which is essentially the combination of a 45-degree cut and then a 90 if you really think about it. So it's kind of, you get to see all of it in one play. But overall, another drop on a nice curl when he was selling a fade. Something is super important when you're going to be running a fade or a go route, a hitch route, which is a button hook, a curl, whatever you want to call it. The best of the best receivers know how to disguise that they're about to do it. And you either run into the corner's blind spot behind them, but the biggest thing is you need to sell that you're doing something besides a hitch, which is pretty much you need to sell vertical. Some players don't do it. Kevin does, which is why I really like his hard cut change of direction. Regardless, overall let down, but the flashes are there to be a cheaper version of Luther Burden, which I really do like for Kevin Concepcion. And again, going to Texas A&M, I'm not 100% sure if that's going to save his career, but it sure as hell is not going to hurt it based on what they were doing there at NC State. Another thing that's going to ruffle some feathers, Zachariah Branch is a good receiver. He's a fun receiver. But again, there's some issues with the hands. He's a limited player, 5'10", 180. Like, you're just going to be limited in terms of your role. And I mean, when you're not that great, I know that Zachariah Branch was also known for like taking returns back, but in short range, I don't think he's that great after the catch. I think he definitely could be, but I just don't think Georgia's the spot for me to have that confidence in him. But let's talk about his game versus Notre Dame. Willing blocker, flashes some contact balance, not as twitchy as I would expect. Still obviously very good, but again, I'm talking about thinking of him coming in, getting potential A grades in burst as well as speed. Not doing much to break tackles, not necessarily vertically separating, had a drop in traffic, tries to sell alternate routes, which is good. Like, remember route fakes, it's good. He flashed a comeback route, so that's good as well because, I mean, you see that A for hard cut, that's hard to get. Nobody has so far. And I don't know if anybody else did. They definitely did. I mean, I definitely gave like an A or so every once in a while, but very few get that grade. Regardless, great track on a fade, ended up dropping it. So, I mean, at least you see that he can track the pass. Very underwhelmed with the top speed, not getting separation vertically. Flash of inside out release. So again, faked in, go out. Just is good for getting position. Burst is popping more now, but the top speed is yet to show anything overly desirable. 180-degree cuts, hitches have been great. Flashes good footwork on releases as well. Definitely let down from a vertical aspect, but as a route runner from the slot, I think he can thrive. That's why I have the role there rather than a comparison. I used to have comps, but it was for probably 10% of the receivers, and I think that's better for me just to mention it if I really feel strongly about it in the middle of it. Speaking of another USC receiver, we got Kairen Hudson, and Kairen Hudson transferred to Penn State. He's a little bit more of a different. He's like literally the exact opposite. Like look at Zachariah Branch to Kairen Hudson. It's like almost they complement each other well. And Kairen is actually a really good compliment for Devonte Ross, who we talked about earlier, who's also transferred to Penn State. So if you're a Penn State fan and missed that, feel free to go check out that review. But he has a little pep to his step. So talking about his game versus Notre Dame as well, because again, I already explained it. I love Notre Dame defenders. I really like to see how players in apples-to-apples scenarios play versus the best. 180-degree cuts, so hitches are not really doing it for me so far. Had a dropped catch in traffic. He flashed a swim release, which again, I'd say upper release, swim release is what it is. Flashes as a blocker as well. Not only did he flash, he did a damn good job. Good use of physicality to get separation on a hitch. I like seeing that as well. A nice box out for a contested catch on I want to call it Malachi Moore, on Leonard Moore. Has some flashes, but lacks the top-end athleticism to give me confidence. So that's why I have him as a red zone threat. He can block well, so if you're running the ball, that's great. He's reliable in terms of his contested catch as well as his catching. And he has a good frame, 6'1", 212. Good frame. That's a good guy to have in the red zone where you don't need to generate the separation as much. It's already, kind of like constrained. So I really do like seeing that. And Kairen Hudson being able to balance out Devonte Ross. I think those guys work together very well. Could end up being pretty damn fruitful there for the Nittany Lions. Vinnie Anthony. This is a player who I ended up seeing via watching, I think it was Will Pauling. Ended up just popping off to me. No, I was actually watching a corner versus Wisco. Regardless, I was watching somebody. This guy popped off when I was watching somebody else, which I love to give credit to players who do that. And so I'm excited for Vinnie Anthony, especially when you're talking about Will Pauling, going to Notre Dame, who we'll talk about in a little bit. Like, this is a big step up that he needs to have. But let's talk about his game versus Oregon. Really like Oregon's corner core, by the way. Nico Reed, I think he ended up going to the Chargers as a UDFA. I mean, that guy actually has some potential. Like, he popped off to me like, So it's something that I never really noticed, but when you watch some of these receivers versus him, I'm like, interesting. But let's talk about Vinnie Anthony versus Oregon. He had a flash off the bat with some good release footwork. It wasn't super consistent, but I mean, at least you see that it's there. Good acceleration, not necessarily a burner, but he can vertically push, which ended up being exactly how I graded him. Good job hitting the brakes on a 180-degree cut. Again, a hitch, deep curl, whatever you want to call it. Gave an indicator of 180. Oh, he gives indicators when he does 180 degrees. So that's a little bit of an issue. Again, you got to be able, that's why your separation grade is probably a little lower than it should be. I think that separation could be a lot better. If you're a really good athlete and can just change direction on a dime, it's very hard for corners to cover you. And I do think Vinny can work on that. Top speed is a bit capped. So, I mean, again, when you're talking about this guy being under 190 pounds and you're seeing that acceleration, you're really hoping that top speed's there as well. Most of the time it's opposite. You talk about guys, even like Deuce Robinson, who I talked about really, really early in the episode. It's like this guy cannot move, or Deon Stribling is the best example. Off the line, not necessarily exciting, but he can build up speed. This is almost the exact opposite. It's like, oh wow, like, but it's just like, okay, well, where's the speed at that matches this intensity? And it didn't. But regardless, had a bad double move, so not a huge fan of that. He had a good catch on a seam route. Has done jack shit after the catch so far. I'm just reading straight from my notes. I'd almost just put him in the slot. So I ended up saying that that's kind of the route that I would go for him, especially with the hands grade that he has. I really like him in the slot. Maybe you can have him some slot fades. Then 45-degree cuts have been underwhelming as well. Can really get caught up with press coverage. Ended up ending off the game with a nice catch in traffic. So, I mean, I think that there's a clear role for Vinnie Anthony, especially because slot corners and slot safeties are not necessarily on the line as often. I think there's and because he could probably vertically threaten some of these slot safeties who are a bit more capped in terms of long range speed. I think he can have a really good role in the NFL for it. Don't think he'll get drafted, but at the same time, I really do have some hope for him. Then we got Jace Brown. Love this guy. Jason and I follow each other over on X. He's a really good dude. And honestly, I really like his game. I was really hoping his hands grade would be a little better. And you'll see that I think half of a point. So if he just improves his hands by 2% probably, he'll end up like jumping up to like wide receiver 17. I hate to say it. It's like really that close. You guys will see. But like 1 point could get you pretty much into the top 20. That's how close this race is. So just shout out to Jace Brown, someone who flashes big time. So let's talk about this game versus Iowa State. Again, want to see him versus the best of the best corners. Also, guys that that either I've graded recently or we just end up seeing in the past draft class. But not overly explosive off the line, which that's okay. I mean, again, that's why I have him as a vertical slot, not necessarily the short range route running slot that I talked about just the player before with Vinnie Anthony. Amazing 45-degree cut with no lost momentum. Like I was talking about earlier, do you drift? Do you slow down? Like 45-degree cuts need to be fluid. Like you need to just flip your hips and be at the same speed that you were before you flipped your hips. And he does that very well. Does a nice job with his second level release. Gorgeous fake in to out. So he ended up having a good route fake there on an out route. Would like for him not only to fake once and do either a straight cut or a double fake because DBs are starting to guess it. So what I meant by that is that every single time if he was running an out route, he would first fake in. And if he's going to do an in route, it seemed like he would just a fake out before it. And I was like, change it up a little bit because they know now, similar to what I was talking about, an indicator. Now it's an indicator. First off, I know that your head's moving for a cut. So I know you're about to cut. But on top of that, you're now getting predictable to where I know where you're going to cut. Not because, oh, he did that, so he's cutting that way. No, because every time you're doing it just once, so you're showing where you're not going. So I can break, essentially, and predict it, which is why I think a separation grade on certain cuts were a little bit lower than what I was really hoping for. Overall, I still thought he did an amazing job. I am trying my best not for you guys to hear this. I'm trying to shake up a smoothie right now, but this is going to be a 2-hour episode. We're here to hang out and have a good time. But regardless, that's what I meant by that. Want a bit more juice, especially for his smaller size. He is 175. That's a bit of an issue. And I mean, off the screen, I do have frame as something that does affect these grades as well. So I do want to put that in there. But you guys can see from the frame, I don't need to put a letter grade for something you already know. And it also makes it so much easier not to have to change every single graphic. But I digress. He can build up some good speed deep. Honestly, I really liked how he ended up having some really good deep reps there, which is it's a big positive to have. Flash of run after catch on a touchdown, ended up posting that one. Flash of some playmaking as well. So after he ran the route, ended up being covered, ended up adjusting the route. So I really like seeing guys ending up doing stuff like that. Really weirdly tough hitch route. So I don't really understand, but I think he ran into more issues than what I'd expect from someone who's so fluid in terms of maintaining momentum on his 180-degree cuts, which kind of has been the exact opposite for the majority of receivers that we've watched. But regardless, he definitely has a lot of vertical. Definitely has a slot with some vertical applications in the NFL. So I think he definitely could end up getting some good reps. Just needs to be a little bit more role specific, especially because of the size. But overall, honestly, a good player and someone who I like to give a good shout out to. There you go. Some ASMR for you guys. We got Hudson Clement next. He is a former West Virginia wide receiver. I got to see this player in person, and he transferred to Illinois, which is good to see because I think that's a great role based on his build to be able to go and try to play in a similar role to, both Zachariah Franklin, but also what we just saw at Pat Bryant. But let's talk about him versus Iowa State. Not overly fast, so he's not the athlete. And honestly, he didn't pop off as an athlete either in person. Nice hitch, nothing too crazy. Catching traffic for a first down. Has not really been an asset as a blocker thus far. Definitely a lower top speed, will not vertically separate. Hard cuts have been very solid. Would like for him to improve his release and as well as his processing versus press. See where I'm talking about it? It's not just a technique thing. It's also a timing thing. It's also understanding how to react. Regardless, he's a really solid route runner, nice catch in traffic, a high floor on sale version of Jack Besh is what I ended up giving him for a comp. He's a good player. He's a good player. Not going to be overwhelmingly exciting, but he plays a really solid red zone role. He runs routes well. The graphic looks like shit because apparently the Cowboys wanted to ruin something else besides our Sundays, but I can't talk shit. I want to get a job with the Cowboys, but I ended up having to call them out right there because their logo ended up really messing up my graphic and it just kind of pissed me off. But let's talk about Isaiah Horton next. This guy's from, why am I tripping up? He transferred to Alabama. We went to the U. Went to Miami. So I ended up watching him versus Florida State. Look at that build. 6'4", 210. That's built to be perfectly like an X build, which is awesome. Definitely somebody that you're going to want to have on your team. in terms of that build. But you'll see why I have that 3 minus. This is going to be a super short review, so we'll have a little bit more time to expand upon it. But this is a game versus Florida State. Not overly explosive, which again, you start thinking about it through the context of 6'4", 210. He was doing pretty good. Good stiff arm for a first down. So I really like seeing that. Can vertically push some defenses. Flashed a quick release. Horrible blocker overall. Definitely has some low effort reps. If you see minus signs, it's either because you're a frame role specific or because you're a motor. Locked up by Azariah Thomas, ended up then having a full extension grab. So Isaiah Horton is just a weird prospect. I ended up posting up a clip on him on X that probably will give you a little bit better of a view than what the notes were to myself. I mean, he's a sophisticated player in terms of footwork, right? Got the release there. He's actually a pretty good athlete. He knows how to run all the routes, and he has good hands too. That's a really good foundation to have, by the way. But the low effort plays really did worry me. And it's just not blocking either at that size. It was just oddly more role specific. That was my gut reaction than anything. But definitely somebody for the Crimson Tide that could take a huge step up. Don't know how their quarterback situation is going to be handled. But at number 24, this might ruffle some feathers too. Some people have Aaron Anderson as a top 5, top 10 receiver in the class. And I respect you for it. I care a little too much about drop rate and contested catch, which even though, I mean, if you guys listen to the start of the video, I actually am giving this because I have a noticeable amount of role-specific grades. I'm giving this grade as the highest of those role-specific ones, which I thought ended up representing how I felt about these receivers very well. So certain positions don't even value it like a vertical threat or a gadget threat the way that maybe you guys are thinking it might. But I do think that, your frame matters. Your blocking ability matters. You still need to be able to do things like contested catch and catch the ball because the NFL doesn't have guys specifically, like you have a 53-man roster. You're not there to do 2 to 3 plays. That's called a practice squad. So I do think it matters. And I'm not saying that's what Aaron Anderson's meant to be, right? I mean, I really like the guy. He's a really solid athlete who's smart, who's a good route runner, who's good after the catch. He's a good player. So that's also showing you how good this class is. I want you to keep that in mind. But let's talk about his game versus Alabama. Has some twitch, but cannot seem to separate with speed so far. 45-degree cuts have not been remotely crisp and kind of just a deviation slowly from where he was running over actually making a strong cut, which again, not great. Overall, not looking very good, especially compared to other similarly built and schemed prospects. And we'll talk about a couple of those guys going forward. There's some very good ones that are built similarly, but actually even taller than Aaron Anderson. But let's get back to it. He flashed an upper release. Love seeing that. Did a nice head fake on a post. I posted that one for him. I think that was arguably his best rep that I saw. He pops after the catch. He called for a ball, not realizing the safety was coming over to guard him. You guys know how I feel about that. I know talking about it earlier with Marquise Johnson from Missouri. You guys can go check that one out as well. But really nice 180-degree cut. So again, nice hitch. Finally flashed some vertical speed, heated up as the game went along. I wonder if his ankle ended up being cold or something early on. Solid in route on a deep route. He overall flashed some really good talent as the game progressed. Definitely seemed to be more health related than talent. I think he compete with similar talents in the class, which again, when you end up seeing how close 24 is to like top 10, you'd realize that's like a small thing, which is like just don't drop the ball as much, will end up making a huge difference. But with Barry and Brown, I do like the idea of Aaron Anderson resorting more to being run after the catch gadget threat rather than, just purely being the deep threat. Let's talk about Denzel Boston next, another player who's, mentioned a lot of first-round picks, and I think he's a very fun receiver to watch. But I do think he's very limited as a route runner. So let's talk about his game versus Oregon. Again, I want you guys to have some apples-to-apples comparisons between some of these receivers. He lacks some deep speed, but he ended up showing a little bit more. But really constantly sending him deep to start the game. Excellent blocking so far, which shout out to Washington, man. They have that shit on lock. They know how to train players to block. So that and Notre Dame, man. They know what to do. A little bit of drift when he ended up doing a deep post, which of all routes, I feel like the post route is the one that you see the most crisp out of the 45-degree cuts. So it is very concerning when you see drift on a post route because you really should not be doing that. Top speed's better than I gave it credit for. Good use of physicality at the break, but not doing a lot as in terms of his release package. Does not sell verticals when he has short hitches. So basically, you know that he's about to just do a short hitch. Not good. Again, not a huge fan of that. Good momentum when he builds up speed, but way too many indicators and drift when he ends up making cuts. A bit unimpressed overall outside of his blocking. A lot of separation is due to push-offs. I'm worried that he'll be flagged a lot in the NFL, which again, you see the separation grades higher than the route running because he used a lot of push-offs. So I am a little bit worried about Denzel Boston, but 6'4", 210, definitely has a very high ceiling because I think he can be a vertical big threat. But this is basically, if you want a super cheap version of Tetairoa McMillan, look no further. Kevin Coleman's next. This guy's so fun. Transferred to Missouri from, I believe, Mississippi State. Talk about his game versus Ole Miss. So he ended up dicing him up in this game. He just took him to town, and this is a really good defense. I mean, top end defensive backs, top end linebackers, top end defensive line. So, I mean, it's surprising when you see somebody perform this well, but very little pop in terms of explosiveness. So that's actually kind of crazy, but it's so true. Like, his get off is surprisingly horrible. I mean, especially when he's 175, I'm like, what the hell? Can definitely build up speed vertically, a mid-hitch route. This guy can burn, all caps, burn in open field. He took a drag route to the house. That shows vision as well as top-end speed. So good to see that right there. Getting open due to defensive failure, not necessarily by his own work. Bad hitch route again. Tried to sell vertical and sold me, but could not hit the brakes and turn. So, like, he sold it, but he just doesn't know how to change direction, which is so weird at that size. Like, especially when you see someone who's good after the catch, like, they're usually very, very agile. But regardless, he had a nice track on a seam route. So good to know that he can track the ball deep, especially that deep speed. He can flip his hips well on 45-degree cuts. Not super crisp, but he still does a good job. Good contact balance as well. Ended up dropping a screen, but I think that was one of his 2 drops on the year. So good job on him overall. Again, seeing a little bit of a skewed perspective there versus Ole Miss. But again, Kevin Coleman, if you're going to use him with the ball in his hands out in space, that's why I love him on the Dolphins, why I include the Dolphins and a lot of guys who have good rack ability. It's just having that ability to have a guy who is reliable in terms of, you throw the ball, apart from this game versus Ole Miss, he's going to catch it. And then every single time, this guy can easily just churn and burn deep. I mean, can just take anything to the house. I would love to see him as a returner. I really would too. I mean, you don't have to be explosive to necessarily be a good returner. You need to know where the hell you're going. You need to be able to fly. And that's exactly what Kevin Coleman does. And he's reliable. So next is Evan Stewart. Evan Stewart's a fun one. I mean, this guy also has been tested in the 4.2s. Shout out to, I keep wanting to shout out 2 different guys. I was about to shout out my boy from Wasserman, but his name's CJ, by the way. Shout out to CJ from Wasserman. But Craig LeBlanc, he's a really good guy. And we ended up having a good discussion over Evan Stewart because he was talking with him earlier in the day. Not today, but when it ended up meeting him. So shout out to Craig there. Live to Craig is what he goes by. So shout out to him. You guys can go follow him over on Instagram. He does a lot of work with receivers and stuff. He's doing work with Derrick Henry this past offseason. He's located in Dallas. So really good to see that as well. Like, obviously, great dude. I don't need to glaze too much, but I mean, someone who I have a lot of respect for, who treated me very well. So I want to be able to give him the credit for it because he didn't need to. Let's talk about Evan Stewart's game versus Illinois, though. He was out physical, but he's willing to try to block. Definitely explosive off the line. He shows speed now better than ever than when he was at Texas A&M. Very nice momentum, bending into a 45. So there's guys who drift. Some guys bend into the 45. I'm not a huge fan of the bend, but he still at least keeps his momentum there. If you bend and then you're losing speed, it's just like, brother, like, do something right. But nice slide release. I love seeing when guys do that. Basically, you go like that, you slide, you go. But sophisticated release there for sure. Not necessarily a low grade one, probably because he's working with Craig. But he does tend to drift a bit on his 45-degree cuts. Hard cuts are okay. He's a little bit more fluid than route run savvy. Like, he kind of just moves well in space, rather than, it's so funny that he's not good after the catch, but he kind of is just more moving at a good speed rather than actually running crisp routes, which may be why they didn't use him as much at Oregon this past year, because guys like Tez are a little bit more tempo heavy and stuff. When you are not doing the best at running an exact route, you probably are not exactly on time, which kind of messes up the play, which might be why they kind of used him in spurts rather than all the time. He randomly not being used, and then he ended up he just ended up being pulled partially to that game. It was a little bit weird, but still worth like kind of showing off. I ended up watching some games of him like versus Wisconsin as well, where he ended up really popping off. But I think Evan Stewart definitely will continue to grow and develop as he's done pretty much as he did last year. Big step up from where he was at Texas A&M. Then we got DeAndre Moore. Love this guy. And again, as you guys see, look at this, all the same grade. All the same grade. So if you guys want to reorganize these, again, by all means do it. But this is how I ended up organizing this group. I really like DeAndre Moore, man. Side by give versus Ohio State. Nice fluidity overall. Definitely pops off the screen. Hands appeared to be solid. Ended up being a little bit higher drop rate. He, very similar to Johnny Wilson, will have some really good catches and then just drop some weird ones. I don't understand, but definitely feels like a short-range gadget guy. Ended up showing that that's not true. He can build up speed. I don't know about him being consistent deep threat. That's a lie. In a Hail Mary, you could see that he can fly. There we go. It's good to see that range, like some good fluidity in his hitches as well. Harder time with 90-degree cuts, but good with the 180s. And I'll just like quickly reverse to that Hail Mary comment. Like I ended up watching it. It was the Hail Mary at the end of the half. You can basically see him just pretty much in a track meet versus the other guys and did such a phenomenal job. First off, getting off the line, probably the fastest out of all of them. But on top of that, the guy who had the best vertical ability. So it was good to see that DeAndre Moore has it. I want him to apply it more, hence the -1 on the it factor. I really want him to apply it a lot more. I didn't think he did it consistently enough, which was like, I don't like seeing receivers that legitimately make me guess whether you can actually press vertically. I like receivers that can have a little variation to where defenders think you're going top speed and then you can gauge it. But with DeAndre, it didn't feel like that. So, it is what it is. We'll see what happens this year. I feel like he should be more effective after the catch with his movement skills. It's a little bit annoying, but he still ends up doing a good job. Needs to sell vertical more on hitch routes. Number 5 ended up flashing. I'm forgetting who that is. Surprised that he did not use his deep speed more often. So, I mean, that's what I was just talking about right there. DeAndre Moore, though, could end up being a fantastic weapon for any player or any team that is looking to get themselves a nice wide receiver 3. Let's talk about another player again, 69.25 grade. So you guys can end up talking about him like below Evan Stewart, below Kevin Coleman. I don't care. I put Eric McAllister up here because he's popped off to me in person. Like I ended up watching him, Besh, all these guys, and McAllister is one of the most fun to watch in person. And it's probably because he's great after the catch. And he's a unique build, 6'3", 205, like really good player. Off the bat, so there's another receiver who had under 100 reps that I did not include on this. It's number 14, the wide receiver for TCU. I'm forgetting his name, but regardless, he flashed to start the game. Not super explosive off the line. Good sell on a fade route before running in a hitch route, and then flash some good run after the catch ability. He ended up flashing some hard cut change of direction on an out route. Ended up then having a bad block. He's okay when it comes to the hands. Not necessarily great, which is a bit annoying, but again, a little more role limited at the moment for his frame. Clean release outside with a hand chop. So had an outside release, chopped the hands of the corner. Really love seeing that. Definitely had some big flashes, but will need to step up big time with 3 wide receivers leaving. I personally think he can. So short and sweet, Eric McAllister, somebody who has a lot of potential there. I mean, solid frame and after the catch ability, somebody who I think could end up being big. Then Cardinal Tate, again, 69.25. You could move him like up or down as much as you want. I had him being the top of this group. Some people are going to be super pissed, but please tell me where I'm exactly wrong. I think he's if you're talking about C as NFL adequate, he's NFL adequate in everywhere, right? This is just a good receiver. Hence why I say his role is balanced. I think he's when you talk about B's, that means good, right? I think he's good when it comes to running some routes that require 45-degree cuts. I think he's good when it comes to catching the ball. I think he's good when it's, just a little bit under good, like pretty dang good when it comes to his top speed. I think he's good when he's coming off the line and, going out of cuts. And I think he's good, pretty good when he's blocking as well. And I think he's great when it comes to contested catches. You tell me where I'm wrong. You tell me. So, I mean, it's just a good receiver class. That's all I got to say. Regardless, let's talk about his game versus Notre Dame. Nice quick feet with some flashes of release package immediately at top speed. So I really like seeing that. Very smooth 45-degree cut. Solid comeback route as well. He can get held up a little by press coverage. Very willing blocker. Does a nice job generating separation and using a lean into the corner before cutting. He's used as one of the primary blocking receivers. Footwork on release could use some work, but the upper hand fighting is absolutely there, which I like. Flash of a crossover as a second level release, so good to see that. Not really generating vertical separation. Wonder if the speed is capped or is it just a tempo thing. Dropped a nice double move for, he ended up dropping a touchdown worthy catch on a double move. Separation dropped off. Overall, a solid 4 for a wide receiver 4 with the ability to be a 3 at least with a little bit more juice. And I mean, right now, 70 and below, or 69.9 and below, which technically would be 69.75 and below, that's a wide receiver 4. You see how close he is to being just a wide receiver 3 who should be taking reps on every single down in the NFL. We're just in a damn good class that's just very, very, very thick in the pause. Very, like, it's a good amount of players in the middle rather than at the top. Now let's talk about Will Pauling. I don't understand why this guy can't catch a ball, but this guy's an absolute beast. Notre Dame just has some really good players. Let's talk about his game versus Oregon. Not too many reps, but I still thought it would be good to see versus some pretty top-end corners. Showing that second level fluidity and IQ. So second level, basically, if there's some corners that are, in some zone spots, you know how to navigate through them without slowing your route down. Love seeing that from players. Smooth 45s, very bad hitch route. I don't know what happened there. Ended up just kind of being a little bit more of a theme. Nice inside release and leverage push off a corner for a slant and got some good separation with it. Near perfect slants. So there you go. That's why there's an A+ right there. He fits very well with other Notre Dame wide receivers. So I really like the fact that he's going to a spot where I could end up seeing it work. He got open on a crosser, ended up not being targeted. Separates very well with both acceleration and speed. Bad drop on a bad pass. So ended up it was being thrown behind him on that play. I remember it was in the red zone too. Willing blocker, but not very translatable. Will Pauling's a good player, man. It's just really bad hands. That just really sucks. That's the biggest thing for me. I cannot stand when wide receivers just can't catch. It was so bad that I had to drop him a couple spots, like a couple points. But regardless, Dane Key is next. Dane Key is super fun. This guy's just he's a weird combination of a high-end route runner as well as built to be a number 1 type of receiver in the NFL. I do think right now his talent level gets him to be about a wide receiver 3, but that's still someone who should be taking reps all the time. But regardless, let's talk about his game versus Texas. So number 7 pop, that's Barry and Brown. Great sudden hitch route. So super sudden hitches overall. You guys see B+ on hard cut is pretty damn awesome. Not great as a blocker so far. Ended up staying that way. Flashed a quick release and then did a sudden hitch. So it's nice to see again. You see that high level footwork, change of direction, also release. More sudden than fast. Ended up still being really good on terms of top speed. Has flashed some playmaking IQ, possibly a better version of Caden Prather. Ended up talking about his game versus Ole Miss as well, but I think for the sake of time, we don't really need to go into that. Amos and Dane Key ended up having a good spout there, but Amos, even though he had a couple penalties, I think had much better production than Dane Key did that game. So this is going to be, he's an interesting one. I've heard both, I think this guy's Megatron, and I think this guy is literally a horrible football player that's just an athlete. I kid you not. I've talked to multiple people, and I've gotten both of those responses. However, I do think Nick Harbor's being misused a little bit at South Carolina. I hope that changes. Let's talk about his game versus Clemson. He builds up big-time speed. Obviously, he's 99 speed in NCAA. It's what he's famous for. It's crazy how non-explosive he is for how fast he is. He's a kind of a crappy blocker. Good sell of a vertical before a nice hitch. Ended up sliding a little bit, but ended up doing it. He ended up selling vertical again later. Ended up having a deep hitch that ended up being caught for a large gain. Not a fan of his intensity. Can play pretty low effort at times. I will just say they kind of use him as a decoy more than a player, though, so that I can understand it. He dropped an RPO post that probably would have been a touchdown. Literally would have gone, literally is only done go routes and hitch routes well. 45s are okay, nothing crazy, but far from bad. Hands are not late, they're very early. So remember when I was talking about, I'm forgetting who, but I think it was Deon Stribling, like super late hands where you just, the defender doesn't have a target. With Nick Harbor, I think he was just leaving his hands out there for too long. The A signaled the pass is going his way, but B also signaling where it's going. So it's just not, I mean, when you're 235, maybe you're just comfortable with the fact that receivers are not going to chop your hands, or corners are not going to chop your hands down. I'm not sold on that. But needs to watch out for slowing before a 45-degree cut in short space. So remember when I said keeping momentum? That's a big thing for me. He can cut on a dime. It just needs to be not these choppy ass steps before, which are indicators of exactly what he's doing. Again, indicators are super key. If you're going to make a big move, make sure they don't know you're about to do it. Would love to see more route variations from him. There is huge potential. I easily could have dropped him further in terms of his overall grade because of the fact that he's very limited, but I thought that, his lack of other skills ended up giving him a pretty good rating to where I'm comfortable with where he's at. But Nick Harbor, I mean, you have someone who is DK Metcalf. Use him well. I don't think they're doing a great job at that, but I'm hoping that it ends up being better this year. Caleb Douglas is a fun one. Shout out to y'all. I mean, the whole entire reason this is over 40 wide receivers is because it was supposed to be 30, and you guys kept recommending good receivers. But Caleb Douglas is talking about versus Iowa State. Nice block off the bat. He ended up popping after the catch, too. Feels a little bit Jaden Higginsy. So, kind of like an on-sale version of Jaden Higgins. Ended up then having a bad block. So, fortunately, the good block off the bat ended up being... He has good effort. I will give him that. But the consistency is not there. Ended up having a nice out route. Can vertically push down the field. Nice hitch route as well. Needs to run through press downfield. So he kind of runs into it. If you're that size, I want you to punish the defender. That's just my thing. Finally pushed off a little and got separation late. Has some flashes, but needs to polish his game as a physical receiver, hence his low contested catch rate. And I think the physicality is the biggest issue, which is why I think he is going to be a little bit he needs a lot more development at a polishing level, but he has a lot of potential. I mean, really good athlete for that size. I mean, the potential is through the roof with Caleb Douglas. Let's talk about Deion Burks. Dude got banged up and he's small, hence the -2 hit factor. But this is a guy who I really, really love. First off, let's talk about him versus Tennessee because they ended up playing him. Ended up popping off as a blocker. Nastily explosive, smooth 45-degree cut, good vision after the catch. Not necessarily seeing the vertical speed at the rate I thought I would. Ended up being hurt, but lots of flashes. Definitely could be a top 10 to 5 wide receiver with a good bill of health. And I mean, that's just all you need to know. I've already watched Deion Burks multiple years in a row at Purdue. This is a guy who is, he's awesome. He's a really good player, but the bill of health has to be there. His catching stats have been horrible, but I think they've gotten better each year, which is, again a pretty good sign. Talk about Malachi Fields next. Again, another Notre Dame receiver. You got to be kidding. Starting out, actually, I watched him versus Notre Dame, which I think is the best thing. First note was he's a big MF, which is true. He is a hulking presence. Nice slant. Ended up having to double catch it, but ended up having some great contact balance after the catch. Stats for drops are pretty low, so I think it was just a one-time thing early in the game. Gets surprised. It happens. Solid route running on a curved in route at his size. Really good momentum that he ended up keeping. So I prefer when people cut on a dime. That's just me. But I also think that if you curve your route, at least make sure that you're maintaining your momentum. So you can still end up being fast, but let's continue. Good blocking so far. Poor outside release ended up being locked up by Leonard Moore. Press seems to get to him more than I would like for a receiver of his build. Straight line speed definitely is capped more than you want, which ended up not really being the case. He's still solid. And this is where I ended up realizing I love Leonard Moore. I said this 15 dude is a beast. It's the best corner in probably all of college football. Hard cuts when not rounded seem tougher for him. He can push it deep a little, but not a blazing athlete. Again, 6'4", 220. Like, and not everyone's going to be Nick Harbor. Poor hitch route. Best route is that bent in. He has done it perfectly twice from each side now. He uses physicality well at the top of his route. Definitely has an it factor to his game. Maybe not in the grading, but just the eye test, which is exactly what I did. He just ended up burning downfield. Maybe he just varies his speed up a little bit, flips his hips well. He's doing nearly everything right, but this 15 dude is balling. It's fucking Leonard Moore, man. What a beast, by the way. I think that guy's the best player in college football. Jeremy Bernard's next. This is someone who took a huge step up from Washington to Alabama. I mean, I think this guy took a massive step up, and I love seeing that. I mean, he was in like the 40s or 50s range for me coming out of Washington, going to Alabama. I thought he took a massive leap forward as he followed his coach DeBoer. But talking about his game versus Michigan, not overly explosive off the bat to start out. Slow hitch route. Flash of contact balance. Nice block. Hard cuts have been harder, but 45s have been smooth. Nice double move. Number 11 pops. Forgetting who. Oh, people really like the comment, but there's another true freshman that I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head. I think his name, it's not Ryan because that's the other freshman, but regardless, number 11 was another true freshman who really, really popped. This is one of the scouting reports where I ended up mentioning him. Flash an upper release on an out route on the goal line. Flashing some speed as a crosser, nice out route, and fluid hips on a redirected deep route. Hard cuts have definitely did get better, as the game went along. He knows how to navigate soft coverage as well as off coverage. I have a feeling he will eat zone coverages up. Flashing nicely after the catch, definitely has a nice downfield release package. Press has not been an issue whatsoever. Has some good head fakes as well. If he can get his burst up a little more, I think he can make some legitimate, serious separation with it. Solid floor wide receiver with room to improve his NFL effectiveness. I mean, this guy could end up being a superstar. I mean, 6'1", 200 pounds, very solid build. Reliable hands, solid build. Not a contested catch threat, but again, you're 6'1". I mean, it's okay. Especially when press doesn't get to you. Maybe that just means that you're more open than not. But if he ends up getting his acceleration up a little bit, which I think he might have gone up in weight, so I'm a little concerned with that. But I think this guy has a really solid ceiling, and I think he can end up being like one of the best players. But speaking of somebody who did not produce at all that I absolutely love, and I haven't loved enough, but I've been seeing the it factor with him this whole time, is J. Michael Sturdivant, formerly of UCLA. Now he's going to Florida, but I'm forgetting, where the hell did he just end up at? I'm forgetting where J. Michael was, but he was still at UCLA. I'm tripping, but ended up transferring to Florida. Let's talk about his game versus Oregon. He ended up not even getting a catch this game, but I still thought that it was worth checking out. He has some really good burning speed, shifty double. By the way, it said 0-1. He ended up catching a ball. So PFF, it was 1 of 2. I digress. Appreciate his physicality. Has some very good blocking reps. Needs to lean more into the DB before his cut. Very fluid player. And I said this, he moves like a Colorado wide receiver. Like the Colorado receivers, you look at Jimmy Horn and stuff. I thought he moved very similar to somebody out of there. Like just felt on brand for him. But he could use a little bit more when it comes to head fakes on deeper routes. A very good wide receiver, just not a good quarterback or offensive line to give the quarterback time. I think that's the thing. His stats are extremely skewed by his play with quarterback as well as that offensive line, allowing that quarterback not to have time to throw it deep. Elijah Surratt is next. This guy's an interesting one. But he's kind of going to be that big slot guy who gets short range separation, just reliable dude. Let's talk about his game versus Notre Dame. No vertical separation off the bat. Nice contested catch. Huge flash of 45. So had some really good 45s there. And finally, an inside release. Outside releases so far have not worked. Has some short range burst. He had a drop with full extension. So, I mean, that's okay. I mean, that's a tough catch, but still worth noting. He's a willing blocker. Some flashes as well as a blocker. I do like how fluid he is. My lord, Leonard Moore is dominant. So by this time, I ended up understanding who Leonard Moore was. Has a little vertical speed. And I said, hey, he finally got more. He ended up beating Leonard Moore on a rep. He flips his hips well, but hard stops have been a little bit elongated. Catch in traffic touchdown. Not doing too much after the catch. Not doing anything after the catch for that matter. Second time on a crosser, dropping a pass with an extension. So I wasn't a fan of that. That's why I gave him a -1 it factor. Such a weird ball to drop with these circus catches. Like, he has a 60%, if I'm not mistaken, contested catch rate. Like, he's insane. And he ends up dropping some of the easier ones. But it was just weird. Like, it happened twice. He's on a crosser, the ball's thrown, and he goes like this, and it's just dropped. I'm like, but you can just absolutely moss dudes on a regular, but when you're open, it doesn't work. I don't understand that, but that's why I kind of like him in the slot. Like, I think that he can end up being just somebody to generate that quick separation on those 45-degree cuts. You know, you have that short range burst, can catch in traffic. I'm hoping that ends up continuing. But let's talk about Eric Singleton, another player that we're going to talk about versus Notre Dame. Transferred to Auburn from Georgia Tech. And I started off this scouting report game by saying, ooh, he is twitchy. Good effort faking on a rundown. So I love when, I think he honestly should have went to Notre Dame at this point, because Notre Dame loves these players too. When the ball's not in your hands, what do, right? Like, no block, no rock. But at the same time, it's like, when the defender is focused on you, but you already know it's a run play, how are you going to play? Are you going to just be like, like, are you just going to like raise your hands out and just, fake block? Or are you going to be like Eric Singleton and make them think some shit's about to go down to them? Like, you just keep them on their toes. So really love when guys put a lot of effort even when they don't get the ball. Has a hard time with hard change of direction. A ton of chop steps. Nice quick release for a stack. So love seeing that. You end up getting good position there. End up having a wrap at running back. Very willing blocker. Nice adjustment for a low ball. Elite effort. I love this guy. He doesn't have an elite top speed, but he knows how to separate. He still has a damn good top speed, but still. Really nice catch in traffic again, showing he has a hard time with the hard cuts, but he at least can hang on to the ball. Bad double move. I don't know what ended up happening there. Dropped a sideline catch, flashed some more as a burner with some deep speed. So there you go. That's why I ended up adjusting a little bit more. Has a little drift on his 45s, but not too much. Another catch in traffic. Definitely can improve as a route runner, but has the movement skills to make it work well. So yeah, this guy's going to be super fun. Shout out to Auburn for having a good receiving core. CJ Daniels is next. Another guy who's taken another big step for me. This guy was pretty damn high on my list to start out last year, even higher for this year. And transferred from Georgia, not having a touchdown this past year. He's a bit older. Just there's certain issues that ended up dropping his grade a little bit. But regardless, he's a really fun player. Punchy in short space. Also, he's fluid in open space. Got vertical separation. This is versus Oklahoma, by the way. Pretty sure I said OU. Oh, my bad. Oregon, if I'm not mistaken. Regardless, versus a good team. I keep thinking of it. It's LSU, so take it as you will. Nice short hitches, high motor. So love seeing high motor. He's a playmaker as well. Can seem to get a little emotional, waving his arms and wailing after penalties or missed throws. Can be a bit iffy as a blocker. Definitely an NFL wide receiver, just needs to learn to chill out a little bit. So yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why he left. It was pretty frustrating there at LSU. I think that there definitely needs to be a little bit of a change up, and at the U, I could see it. I could really see it, especially with Horton being gone. Antonio Williams is next at number 6. Talk about his game versus Texas. Immediate get off. Nice one-step slant. Used as the motion guy, so really nice navigation skills at the second level, like I'm talking about, and off as well as zone coverage. How do you navigate those players in space to where you don't end up disrupting your route, your timing? Can definitely pick up some speed as well. Just knows how to fluidly move through the layers of the defense. Drifts a bit on hitch routes, so ended up being just a consistent issue. You guys see, it's very hard to be this high up and have an F grade, but it ended up happening. Rarely is in a blocking situation, but has not been a liability thus far. Nice adjustment on a post cut to get open for a first. Got separation. Nice adjustment after after he ended up cutting. Remember, I'm talking about this playmaking IQ. That's what I'm talking about. Ended up getting open. Ended up getting a first down. Got separation deep. Eats DBs alive with these 45-degree cuts. Has good ability to avoid press at the line of scrimmage, as well as past the line of scrimmage. Has gotten open deep several times this game and has not once been targeted. Hard cuts are not in his toolkit. big future as a vertical slot. So, I mean, that's pretty much the thing with Antonio Williams. This guy's a super good player. I'm excited to see him go to the next level. Jaden Greathouse, I just got to be honest. Two things. One, I will admit his grade's kind of carried by the fact that this guy like has elite hands. I mean, he catches everything. But on top of that, this guy does not look 6'1". Like, I'm just going to be honest. The guy looks 5'11". There's some imposter syndrome here. I'm just a little bit terrified of Jaden Greathouse just being 5'11" and just being said that he's 6'1". I don't think he's 6'1". But talk about his game versus Georgia. Very fluid, quick feet with a flash of upper release downfield. Clean releases, very well done. Clean slant and catch in traffic. Would like more route fakes, but I get it. It's a timing route. So, again, sometimes you just have to work in the constraints of your offense. Does these amazing micro cuts to generate constant separation. Top speed leaves a little bit more to be desired, but the separation still ends up being very solid. Very willing blocker. He is explosive, yet not necessarily fast. With route running ability, it puts him perfectly into the slot. Some really solid blocking reps too. Jaden Greathouse is just a damn good receiver. That's the thing. He's not going to be a vertical threat, but if you need some separation in short range and you need someone to catch the ball and hold on to the ball and be able to block, this guy's awesome. This next guy I did not expect. This is my last wide receiver I think I graded outside of Marquise Johnson. Chase Roberts. So shout out to my brothers there. There's one guy on X who loves Chase Roberts, so I got to give him some credit where credit's due. Let's look at this game versus Arizona State. He can vertically stretch the field, but not necessarily separate. So again, that's where you get to that B+, A- tier. So continuing on. Very smooth 45 degrees with some good run after the catch. Not great. Can get caught up by press. The reason why I say not great, his missed tackle rate's pretty damn low. Can get caught up in some press coverage, which, I mean, that's honestly surprising given that's, I think, why he had so many contested catches as well. I think he can end up like reducing that because he's a really good route runner. He's a solid athlete, has a good release package. I don't know why. It's more the mental thing, I think. But regardless, so good routes so far. Some of the best hard cuts in the entire draft. So hence there's that A for the hard cut. Very hard to get. Flashing some higher level release footwork. Needs to learn to use his weight more to lean into defenders. Knows how to deal with soft spots. Nasty double move. So ended up being a big game there. Or actually, it wasn't even a big gain. I think it wasn't even targeted. Clean inside release with enough speed to maintain that positioning of the stack. Good job attacking a blind spot of a corner. Number 17 apparently pops for BYU as well. Ended up catching the Hail Mary, ended up being short though. So I love that. I mean, this guy ended up being someone to catch a Hail Mary, did a good job boxing out the corner. But Chase Roberts is just a damn good route runner. I'm surprised he's not so good not after the catch, versus the press, because it's all the tools in the world. But if you have all the tools in the world and you're doing well in pretty much every other category, I'm willing to bet on you. Here's the biggest problem with Chase Roberts. He's from my high school class. And I'm 24, so a little bit concerning in terms of the age, but the talent is just ridiculous. I mean, the statistics, look them up yourself. I mean, his contested catch rate is through the roof. Noah Thomas is next, transfer from Texas A&M to Georgia. Talk about his game versus Texas. And he 6'5", 205, so really good build. It was 6'6", over 200. It was 6'6", 200 at Texas A&M. He looks 6'6", but, I mean, who gives a crap? Probably 6'5 and a half. Unbelievably smooth, immediate get off, can vertically challenge defenders, needs to sell the vertical more when he goes for hitches. He did that on the next play and ended up going into the blind spot and got really good separation on a deep hitch. I love when I get to see guys like learn mid-game and like just deploy things I want him to. Dude's getting open, but he's not getting targeted. He ended up having an outside to inside release, flashes some route fakes on vertical routes. Bottom line, I could not find an issue with Noah Thomas. He's just not necessarily the guy you want after the catch. He's not really a great blocker, but he does everything really well. I don't know why he's going to Georgia. Money, maybe, but like this guy is like so ridiculously good. Noah Thomas is a really good player. Funnily enough, I think his mom is on X as well. She likes to retweet stuff. So shout out to Mama Thomas as well. We do love our supportive parents on X. I know even last year, there's a player for this year, Damani Jackson's dad. Shout out to him as well. He made some comments there. Makai Lemon. I did not expect him to be my number 2 overall wide receiver. Ended up being very, very happily surprised. Wide receiver out of USC. Talking about his game versus Notre Dame, of course. Dice these MFs up, but they're the best. Let's see why. Punchy blocker off the bat. Nasty comeback. Ended up posting that on X. Nice stutter for a big, or nice stutter go for a big completion. So a fake double, like a fake hitch. Leonard Moore is a fucking savage. So love him as well. Has some speed, but he's not necessarily a burner the way some of the other guys are. Definitely giving slot vibes, and that's where he sees the majority of his action. He played some on the outside, but I do think based on his build, I also don't know if he's 5'11". I think he might be more like 5'10", 5'9". But regardless, literally goated high energy blocker, which is crazy as well. But he's a big player. He was 190 last year. I think he's up to 195 now. Not seeing much after the catch, which is very surprising. Generates a quick separation. Good job with little swipes of hands to keep defenders off him vertically. Another nasty comeback route. Wowed, but will be probably limited to the slot. I mean, he's just a damn good player. Like, he tested out well in like the majority of categories that you need. He's reliable. He gets open. Like, that's kind of what you need. And he blocks well. That's just crazy. He blocks well. Last but not least, my love affair this season. And I'm hoping to God he stays healthy, because that's going to like piss me off if he doesn't. And I probably could have dropped him a couple points. Who gives a crap, right? I mean, like, it's still going to be the number one. The king, Jordan Tyson. Let's talk about his game versus UCF, because y'all know I love UCF, especially their defense last year. Started out, first rep. Ooh, he is smooth with a bunch of H's. Like, he is smooth. He wears a hoodie, so he wore a hoodie that game, so I said he's goated. Flashing some good blocking form, not overly explosive off the bat. Flashing some high-end release packages at the second level. Oh my lord, this dude just separates so damn well. The perfect blend of release polish as well as head fakes. 100% effort on all plays. Did a great job with an upper release versus catch man on a quick in route, and was targeted with a safety coming down hard for a near pick six. So, hate seeing that, but of course, that's unfortunately one of my big issues with Sam Leavitt. Levitt's just not great. He's just not great. That's just my reaction. I mean, unfortunately, hopefully I'm wrong about that. This guy may not be the most explosive nor the fastest, but he maintains speed unlike most receivers that I have ever studied. I basically comped him to a much better version, like a NFL actually translatable version of Bo Collins, who I really like there from Clemson. Ended up transferring to Notre Dame, having a pretty rough year last year. Unfortunately, my one mistake for the episode, I miscolored the number for or the letter for hands. Gotta love that one. But on cue, speaking of who had an F grade for hands, it was Bo Collins. But regardless, getting back to it, flashing some contact balance, getting hit immediately after the catch on a screen route. I said I freaking love his physicality when the ball is not in his hands even. Good on a high point catch. His explosiveness out of his cuts is incredible. Contested catch drop. The body control and maturity with his route running is unbelievable. He looks better from the slot, but he's kind of going to be a number one or an X from the slot. A high point contested catch needs to remain disciplined as a blocker. And it can get thin, or he can get thin in the lower body and overcommit, leading to obviously an easier angle for the defender or an easier disengagement. Late hands on a goal line fade, I love it. Ended up being a touchdown. Tries to manipulate his route post cut, so the playmaking ability. And I said I do love the playmaking mentality. I will say it's not as effective with his choices, but to be fair, Leavitt's not really looking to throw. So I ended up being overall wowed by Jordan Tyson. If he can end up staying that way, I ended up saying slot X. I know the slot is not known as the X, but it's getting the idea across as a slot number one. And I think he could be a true number one in the NFL. I think teams should be definitely looking to acquire him. And overall, I just love his game, man. I mean, such a good player. But that's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching and joining me for this probably multi-hour journey. You stay safe and take it easy. Later.